Hey guys, welcome to Relatable. Happy Wednesday. Today we are talking to Jason Buttrill. He's going to tell us what is really going on with Speaker Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan. Is she just a patriot defending democracy? Or is there something else that we should be talking about? We're also going to get a brief update on what is going on between Russia and Ukraine. He's going to give us his analysis of the Biden administration's successful killing of an Al-Quada terrorist in Afghanistan. And then we are also at the end going to talk about this George Soros op-ed in the Wall Street Journal and what it means, why we should care. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Good Ranchers. Go to goodranchers.com/Allie for a discount. That's goodranchers.com/Allie. Okay, before we get into that conversation with Jason, which you're absolutely going to love, I mean, he just breaks things down when it comes to foreign policy so well. I do want to give you an update about a story that we talked about at the beginning of the week on Monday about Moms for Liberty. I told you they had been suspended from Twitter temporarily for criticizing a California bill that basically revoked the rights of parents whose kids want to travel to California for quote unquote gender transition procedures and surgeries. And they also were kicked off PayPal. They don't really know why. PayPal didn't give an explanation, but basically punished them for the views that they have. PayPal has done this to other organizations and individuals who speak out against gender ideology, who use PayPal as a way to take donations. And now Governor DeSantis of Florida is fighting back. This is according to FloridaVoiceNews.com. PayPal unfreezes Moms for Liberty funds after DeSantis announces crackdown on woke banking. So here's what the article says. Governor DeSantis announced last week that Florida would begin cracking down on woke banking. Moms of Liberty said many of their donors give automatically via PayPal. Obviously, they weren't able to do that when PayPal froze their abilities to receive those donations. While Governor DeSantis was speaking at their Liberty National Summit on July 15th, they started getting emails that PayPal had stopped processing all of their monthly donors. PayPal froze the organization's $4,500 and wouldn't let them transfer the money out until the IRS had approved the organization's paperwork. I mean, this is really an example of, at the very least, soft fascism. A way to think of fascism is the wedding of corporate and state power to punish dissent. That's exactly what is going on here. And of course, all of the people who say that they are anti-fascist are for this kind of wedding of corporate and government power. Really scary stuff. We saw it in Canada with the trucking protest as well. Moms for Liberty said PayPal had already accepted the paperwork they filed with the IRS. After DeSantis' press conference announcing that he wants legislation passed to prohibit companies like PayPal from discriminating against customers, this press conference happened just the other day, PayPal released the funds and began letting Moms for Liberty use them again. So don't you see that it just takes a little strength from the people in power? So for so long, Republicans have just said, oh no, companies can do what they want to do. That's freedom. That's the free market. Well, now we see that corporations use their power. They pair it with the government's power. They weaponize it to punish people that do not agree with, that do not go along with the progressive regime. And the only way to fight back, the only way to push back on that is people with power, Republican elected officials saying no and saying, no, we are going to punish the companies that are punishing you, conservative. And so that's what DeSantis is doing. Of course, that's what he did with Disney as well. Fully support this. If this is the new form of conservatism, if this is the new form of the Republican Party, I am 100% on board. So once again, go DeSantis. This is what I like to see. I want to see more Republicans leading in this way and following his example. All right, let's direct our sights abroad as we look at what is going on really in Taiwan with Nancy Pelosi and China and all of that complicated mess and what this all really means. But before we get into it, let me tell you about our first sponsor for the day, and that is Birch Gold. You guys have seen the effects of inflation. You've probably felt it in your house. The recession that is happening, no matter what the White House says, is very real. So you need to make sure that your savings are secure with Birch Gold. It is critical for you to take a hard look at diversifying your savings into gold and silver. Text Allie, ALLIE, to 989-898. Get a free information kit on how to diversify and protect your savings with precious metals. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, countless 5-star reviews, and thousands of satisfied customers, gold is the right investment to make now. That's Allie to 989-898. Allie 9 to 989-898. Jason, thanks so much for joining us. Tell us why Nancy Pelosi is going to Taiwan. Why does it matter?
Taiwan is one of the more interesting things going on in the world right now, mostly because it's just so ambiguous. And I think that's a good word because the original, our original act, the Taiwan Relations Act, was nicknamed Strategic Ambiguity because it was so confusing. And it was done that way on purpose, right? It was done that way so that we didn't really know, they didn't really know what we wanted out of Taiwan, vice versa. We didn't want to confront each other on it too much. We kind of just wanted to let it, you hear the word status quo, just be what it was, which was ambiguous.
Right.
So that's just the way they were, hoping that it remained. But Pelosi going there is interesting on many levels because you really don't know why Pelosi does some of the things she does when she does them internationally. Like, why is the Speaker of the House undermining the foreign policy of the President of the United States? I don't like the current President of the United States, but even still, Speaker of the House shouldn't be undermining United States foreign policy. It's not her job.
So how is this undermining United States foreign policy, her going there?
So the official line of United States foreign policy, as confusing as it is versus, as it pertains to Taiwan, is that it's an unresolved issue. It's an unresolved issue. It's been unresolved since, it began around 1950. And
by unresolved issue, you mean that Taiwan sees itself as independent. China does not see Taiwan as independent. And China kind of wants to take over Taiwan the same way that they took over Hong Kong. And so the U.S. is kind of like, we don't know.
Right. And, we've been trying to stop Taiwan from actually saying, hey, we're sovereign and declaring independence, even though that's what they want.
Okay.
We've been trying to stop that.
So when the State Department says, I think you just said the other day, we don't support Taiwan's independence, that's what they mean?
Yes, but you're not really supposed to say that out in the open like
that.
That's why it was labeled strategic ambiguity, because you're not supposed to make a very public statement. When people say, has that basically been the United States? You've probably seen that a lot from people like on social media or whatever. A lot of people were putting out like a quote, said, yeah, that's the way it's been since 1950s. I would say technically yes, but also more ambiguous no. Right? I mean, and again, think of everything going on with Taiwan as like the most confusing Christopher Nolan movies that we've ever seen. Or, we're like, wait, this could be taken this way, it could be taken that way. China's one China policy, right? That is Christopher Nolan's Inception. Our treaties and our foreign relations and how we deal with them, that's Interstellar, which for me was even more confusing than Inception. And then who actually holds claim to the island of Taiwan, period? Whether it's, the Republic of China, which we can get into that later, which is Taiwan, or if it's China itself. That's tenet, basically. And it's all confusing and no one understands. But I think a good way to start with is just kind of go back into the history, like why this is coming to a head now. But basically, the thing between Taiwan and China is maybe the only unresolved civil war that's still going on. Of course, when Mao overthrew the Republic of China, back in the 50s, the leadership just picked up left as they were getting beat back and driven to the shore, hopped on boats, and went to Taiwan. So the current government in Taiwan has its roots from the Civil War, the government that Mao kicked out, and now they're on Taiwan. So you can see why this is very symbolic to China. They never finished the job.
Right.
This would be like if General Lee in our Civil War didn't give up and said, no, screw you guys, we're going to keep fighting and we're going to take the United States back one day, and went to the island of Cuba and just set up, and they continued to call themselves the United States of America or the Confederate States of America or whatever, and it was still frozen to this day.
Right. Okay.
That's
a good comparison to kind of help people understand what's really going on. And some people don't even know what Mao's Cultural Revolution was. I know it's hard to sum up in a sentence, but can you just talk about what it was and why there is still so much tension there?
Mao's Cultural Revolution?
Yeah.
Well, Mao. So Mao basically was you have to destroy your history. You have to destroy everything, all your values, everything that made you who you were, and you have to be brought up in this mold of communism. So everything culturally identifiable to them at the time, they completely destroyed. The people that left Taiwan that were fighting against that, they were the ones that were, alive during this area. They were the ones that were fighting against that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go to bat for the Republic of China because I'm sure they, the people that left and went to Taiwan, because, I'm sure they did a lot of messed up things too. But those were the people that were around in that era and then left.
Yeah.
To go
Mao
there.
was a communist in the 20th century, and his Cultural Revolution was basically trying to implement communism everywhere. That and the whole Great Leap Forward killed tens of millions of people, not just by killing dissidents, as totalitarians always do, but also through famine. So the people that went to Taiwan were kind of rebelling against that communist revolution, and those tensions are still there today because, of course, the Chinese Communist Party is still communist and still holds on to a lot of Mao's values, right? So they see Taiwan as a threat.
Sure. An actual threat and a symbolic threat.
Yeah.
Because they never actually got it done. China's one China policy is very interesting to me too, because everyone has a different kind of description for it. And you've even seen that from U.S. leaders as far as people in Taiwan. So Taiwan and China, they don't recognize each other as actual governments. Taiwan doesn't see the PRC as an actual government, the people in control of China. And China, likewise, does not recognize the Republic of China, Taiwan. So when they say one China, and this was even said way back in the day when Nixon and then Carter, and then it was solidified, in 1979 with the Taiwan Relations Act, that, look, everyone agrees that there is one China, that Taiwan, people in Taiwan and the people of China are the same people, and that there can't be more than one China. But the problem is that the wording on our end is very ambiguous, because we're not really saying that the people in Taiwan aren't the legitimate government, even though we've told China that we say that the PRC is the legitimate government of China.
Right.
Taiwan thinks that, yes, there is one China. They agree, but they think that they are the ones that, you know what I'm saying? It is so convoluted and it's so confusing. And that's exactly the way they've kind of wanted it to be.
Yeah.
That's why when you have like the State Department coming out and saying, no, we do not, support sovereignty, we don't support independence in Taiwan, that's when you come out and say it so bluntly. You're basically agreeing with the People's Republic of China, with the Chinese Communist Party.
Quick pause to tell you guys about Patriot Mobile. I love this company and everything they stand for. They're America's only Christian conservative mobile phone provider. They have been on the front lines fighting for your values. That's why Patriot Mobile is different from every other provider out there. Inflation has made it really hard on a lot of Americans. You guys know that. But Patriot Mobile has plans for almost any budget. And they offer the same nationwide coverage as all the major carriers. So you get the same service plus the knowledge, the comfort that your money is going to a company fighting for the sanctity of life, religious freedom, the Second Amendment, rather than a lot of other companies that are actually fighting against those things. So go to patriotmobile.com/Allie or call 972-PATRIOT. Use the offer code Allie to get free activation. Plus, if you're a veteran or first responder, there's an additional discount for you. Go to patriotmobile.com/Allie. That's patriotmobile.com/Allie. So what's stopping China from just taking over Taiwan the same way that they took over Hong Kong a couple years ago?
So Newt Gingrich, when in 1997, China did not like it then, but they didn't have the military capability to do it. They still don't really have the military capability to do it, or they would. They're on a timeline to eventually get everything they want. They were on a timeline to take back Hong Kong, and a lot of people were saying, "Hey, this is outrageous. It's supposed to be two parties, or two systems, one country." True. But in the agreement with Hong Kong, it was always that China would take full control eventually. I can't remember how many decades it was until the two systems was just going to be thrown out the door. China just accelerated it because they're more in a position to accelerate right now. The thing with Pelosi that really pisses me off is that now, since China's growing in their military capability and economic power, they're accelerating the timeline with Taiwan. So when you asked me earlier about why Pelosi's visit was so important or so damaging, that's one of them. You're accelerating a timeline, which is going to be painful. It's people will die when this happens. She's accelerating that timeline, and we don't even know if why is Pelosi even doing this?
Yeah,
is it purely legacy? Because remember, it was back in the. This was right after Tiananmen Square. Remember, she did this big public. Remember that? She unfurled that thing.
Well, I saw a clip that was going around recently, and I think that was people were trying to say, look, she's always been an ally of Taiwan. This is her taking a stand against the CCP, which, look, I'm for taking a stand against the CCP. And if that's what it was for, I'd be happy, I guess, that, for that kind of courage. But it's hard for me to believe that someone who has sold out the United States so consistently to the CCP in a variety of ways, economically and so on, that she would really be taking the stand out of sheer bravery and virtue.
Right, and that's the left in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
They put this mask of virtue on, but what are they doing behind the scenes? And we know what the Pelosi's do behind the scenes. That's what it makes this. This is almost like the Bidens, when they talk about, again, being virtuous or just having the country's interests in mind, but you have the president's son flying off with you and doing deals in China or
right.
doing deals in Eastern Europe and all this stuff. They're crony capitalists is what they are. They're everything the left says they hate, but they are the poster childs for this. And Nancy Pelosi is one of the worst as well. How are we supposed to know what you really want to do when she was headlining that CHIP Act to boost semiconductor production here in the United States?
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that, because that's what a lot of people are saying this is really about. So what does that mean?
Well, I don't know if that's what it's really about, but it definitely looks suspicious, right? I mean,
and what is that act?
So that's supposed to boost semiconductor production in the United States by granting subsidies to, chip companies here in the United States.
But what does that have to do with China? Why are people saying that actually helps China and that this somehow has to do with Pelosi and Taiwan?
So Taiwan is by far the biggest semiconductor producer in the United States.
Okay.
So you can see where the conflict of interest start coming in. So there was that very public selling of her husband's when he sold that NVIDIA stock, took a loss. NVIDIA gets all of their chips pretty much from the largest company in Taiwan that makes superconductors. She actually, that was part of her trip, is she got a tour of their manufacturing plant like yesterday, hours ago, I guess.
So this could be about making her and her husband more money.
It could be. We don't know. And when it's that corrupt and that, it's that crony-ish, if that's a word, you don't know what their true motivations are. What we do know is they've made tens and tens of millions of dollars, the Pelosi family, by gaming the system. Right. Yeah. I mean, this is what we hate about government. Right. It's like when they claim to be for everyone, but they all become multimillionaires when they were just regular people when they first got into office. It's bull is what it is.
Yeah.
But we don't know. Right. So like she's either chasing a legacy or just doing photo ops like she did in Tiananmen Square. Maybe this was her last hurrah, because she's, what is she, 81 or something like that? Maybe this is her last legacy-defining moment, when I stood up to China, even though you're accelerating a timeline and making military conflict closer.
Yeah.
That's the danger we're talking about, and all for a photo op or for what, stock?
Yeah.
For more stocks?
And Taiwan seems eager to welcome her. Also, Pelosi, she wrote, or someone wrote for her, an op-ed in the Washington Post, and I'll just get your reaction to what she says. It's a little bit different than how you're describing it. She says that the Taiwan Relations Act set out America's commitment to a democratic Taiwan, providing the framework for an economic and diplomatic relationship that would quickly flourish into a key partnership. It fostered a deep friendship rooted in shared interests and values. And she says, yet disturbingly, this vibrant, robust democracy is under threat. In recent years, Beijing has dramatically intensified tensions with Taiwan. They've ramped up patrols of bombers, fighter jets, surveillance aircraft near and even over Taiwan's air defense zone. In the face of the CCP's accelerating aggression, our congressional delegation's visit should be seen as an unequivocal statement that America stands with Taiwan, our democratic partner, as it defends itself and its freedom. So that's why she says that she's going.
Well, so Taiwan Relations Act, like I said, was very, very confusing. It was very confusing on purpose. They were not a democracy when we did that act. That came later in the timeline. I think the only reason, well, really the only reason that we had to do it is because the Soviet Union was around at the time and we were fighting a Cold War against the Soviet Union. We wanted, it was not only, again, symbolic, but it was also very strategic to have the other largest communist, entity in the world, China, opposed to the Soviet Union. So that was a big ally. That's why Nixon began it in the early 70s. It's why Carter continued it. That was a huge shift in global geopolitics when we brought the Chinese in with us against the Soviet Union. That was the only reason we continued to, try and deal with Taiwan. And before that, it was because we supported the Republic of China. We did not support communist Mao. It was practical geopolitics. It had nothing to do about feelings, and it had nothing to do with, setting a framework for democracy in Taiwan. Had nothing to do with that. And this is a problem with things that remain that are old, like the Taiwan Relations Act. And you saw this, in the breakout of World War I. Old treaties, old alliances will bring larger conflicts later in line when things change. The world is not what the world was after World War II. The world is much different. And another example, and we might have talked about this before, but Japan. There's no reason why Japan should still be under a constitution, clause or amendment that says they can't build up their military more, that we imposed them on them. MacArthur supervised that. They should get rid of that. It's a legacy of World War II. They should be the ones countering China and offering friendship and protection to Taiwan. They're right there. They're in the region. That should not be us.
Yeah.
We should not be responsible to grant security for a country that's, 10,000 miles away. That should not be us. If you want to see, and you asked a good question before, why doesn't China, why haven't they just done this already? And why do they think they can do it now? Well, they're pretty much at the point where they can make a significant case that they can pull this off, and that is, take Taiwan. How can we really defend them? And the answer is we could have back then, after World War II or during the Cold War, we could have back then. Right now, I don't know if we could. We could put up a good fight, but you're looking at a country that's right next door to the other country that might invade them. How are we going to cross 6,000 to 10,000 miles and put up an adequate defense on that? The world is not the same. It's different.
Yeah.
And we should not be acting the same way we were post-World War II or during the Cold War or in the immediate years post-Cold War, of being the security grantor for all these people. Like, it really shouldn't be our job. And it even says in the documentation in the Taiwan Relations Act and all the other communiques during the time that, look, this is a problem between Chinese people. Chinese people need to figure this out. Chinese people in Taiwan, Chinese people in mainland China. This is something you guys need to figure out. Our security grantee said, look, all we're saying is we don't think that it should be kinetic coercion. It shouldn't be violent. There shouldn't be violence. There shouldn't be blockades, none of that stuff. Then we'll come in and help you if it happens. But you need to figure that out. Problem is they're just never going to figure it out. Eventually, it will come down to them, whether militarily or I can't think of any other way they would. But, the two brothers are going to have to fight it out probably and figure it out themselves.
Yeah.
But the United States should not be the ones, based off of an old treaty that says, hey, we're going to go in. And remember, this goes back to the Soviet Union and us fighting the Soviet Union. How ridiculous is it now that this is leading our foreign policy between China and Taiwan now? Right. It's insane.
And China is obviously upset by this. They said that they're running targeted drills, missile tests around Taiwan in response to Pelosi's visit. Said that these operations are designed to safeguard national sovereignty. China vowed to resolutely thwart external interference in Taiwan's independence and separatist attempts. 21 aircraft entered Taiwan's air defense zone. U.S. officials have decided, this is all according to Politico, have decided that China's threats are nothing more than an intimidation tactic, but the Pentagon did deploy 4 U.S. warships, including an aircraft carrier in waters of East Taiwan. I mean, are we looking at a provocation of war with China? Because that kind of freaks me out.
Yeah. The military exercises by China is pretty much what I expected. I didn't think that they were going to do anything to Pelosi, the plane, or even start actually firing missiles or anything. They're not quite ready to do that. This is what they want to do, but they're not quite ready.
Do they want a hot war with the U.S.?
I think that they'd be willing to do it over Taiwan because of the symbolic nature of it and what they need.
But the U.S. should not be willing to do it, is what you're arguing.
No. The U.S. is not in a position to carry that out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's going to be tons of people that will disagree with me on that.
Do you feel the same way with Russia and Ukraine?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree that the world is changing. People need to come to that agreement as well. It's not a unipolar world anymore.
And that we should not be going around, as you said, being the safeguards for countries that need it.
Right. We shouldn't be the grantor of security for all these people anymore.
Yeah.
That is not the world, even though all these people, and you'll hear it from foreign policy, experts on mainstream media, they're still talking as if it is 1985.
Yeah.
Or the end of the Cold War, 1991 or 2.
Right and left.
That's right and left. Exactly right. That we are not that country. The world is not that world.
Yeah.
China is more than capable of trying to do this, and probably can do this. We are not capable of responding to everything else that is going on in the world and coming out victorious everywhere. We're just not. Like I said, it's not a unipolar world anymore, where the United States is the sole superpower capable of pretty much doing whatever they want to do, with no other country being able to respond.
Yeah.
Some of these countries now are capable of responding. Some of these countries are forming other alliances, to counter us, and they're more than capable of doing it.
Yeah.
It's now a multipolar world.
Right. And
that's the reality. And really, that's pretty much where it should be. There shouldn't be one nation in the world running off to take care of all these problems. Other countries can take care of their own problems. We've got plenty of problems we have here at home that we should be focused on.
All right, I'm excited to tell you guys about Healthy Cell. Healthy Cell is the next generation of dietary supplements. If you take supplements and multivitamins like I always have, and if you've taken them in pill form like I always have, now is the time to change. Studies show that you don't absorb most of the nutrients in pills, not to mention they can be hard to swallow. And let's face it, vitamins you can't absorb are a waste of money and time. That's why doctors and nutritionists created Healthy Cell, a great tasting ingestible gel with 165% more absorption than pills. Let me give you an example. Research has shown that distractions not only hurt productivity, but they can lead to higher stress and a bad mood, which means focus and concentration are shaping up to be the new superpowers for 21st century professionals. In 2008, the average amount of concentrated time on a task without distraction was 12 seconds. 5 years later, it was only 8 seconds. That's less attentiveness than a goldfish. Healthy Cell's microgel ensures maximum absorption of exactly the sort of premium nutrients you need to help support focus, recall, mental speed, and rapid learning. If it's optimal brain performance you want, check out Healthy Cell. Go to healthycell.com/Allie. That's healthycell.com. Use code Allie for 20% off your first order. healthycell.com/Allie. And America is not what it was in 1985. I'm not even sure there's a will to be that country that's running around to other countries. And I'm not sure if our military has the capability or the willpower. I mean, think about the cultural rot that has infected a lot of the military, even though a lot of them are still some of the best people in the country. I mean, I also doubt our capability to do the things that it seems like our elected officials want us to do, which is, as you said, be the guarantors of safety and security for the world. I'm not sure that we can even do it if we wanted to.
It's funny you say that because yesterday I was watching all the developments going on, and there was one article that popped up, in my feed that said, the United States Air Force is, ready and willing to respond if needed. Very second article I saw said, U.S. Air Force hosts drag queen story hour on base, blah, blah, blah. I was like, are you kidding me right now? Yeah.
And their recruiting numbers are so far down.
Yeah.
Because, who wants to enter the military they're so often working class, young men, very often young white men who are now hearing from top officials in the military that they are going to be analyzing and dismantling what they see as white rage and toxic masculinity and the patriarchy. Who wants to serve that country? Who wants to serve in that military? It's sad. I just want to get your quick reaction analysis to the Al-Qaeda leader, Ayman al-Zawahiri, that was apparently killed by U.S. forces. Is this a win? What do you think?
I'm glad he's dead.
Yeah.
So you can take a win from that. That definitely deserves to be a headline, but there needs to be another headline right next to that headline that says Al-Qaeda reestablishes its base of operations in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Which I did not really see that. I don't think at all right after that happened. This guy got killed in a posh neighborhood in Kabul, the capital. Not in some deserted farmhouse, out in a desert somewhere where, he was trying to hide. He was not trying to hide, right? Who was he meeting with when he was there? Was he meeting with the Taliban defense secretary or whatever he's called? Was he meeting with the other radical, Al-Qaeda's radical enough, but the more radical militant arm of Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan called the Haqqani Network? Was he meeting with them? Probably. Yeah, probably. What a tragedy. Everything that we fought to get rid of.
What a tragedy in that.
The Al-Qaeda is now back in the capital of Afghanistan and operating so openly. That's
much
insane.
Thanks to our disastrous policy and pullout last year, a year ago. I guess it was a year ago now.
Right. Yeah, exactly a year ago. Yeah, and I think pretty much everyone agreed that we needed to get out of there. We needed to pull out. That was not the question. The question was how we did it.
Yeah.
And the way they did it, it looked as if the Biden administration was doing it again as a symbolic something for Biden's legacy or for the Democrats. It was almost like they were looking for some kind of political win or something like that and forced this issue way too early. And strategically, I can't even imagine how our military generals signed off on what went down. Just catastrophic, absolutely catastrophic. But yeah, the killing of the Al-Qaeda leader, like I said, I'm glad he's dead. He was a bad guy. A new leader will rise up. They probably already declared who that is. And they're still operating out of Afghanistan as if it was the year 2000, which is just insane.
Yeah, just insane. Give us an updated analysis of what's going on between Ukraine and Russia, if you can. A lot of people saw and were very put off by, to say the least, the Vogue spread of Zelensky and his wife. It just seemed a little out of touch. There was the
most ridiculous photo in that spread. They were all ridiculous, right? But the worst one was she was like in this very expensive coat, and she was like gazing off into the distance, and there was like this war-torn scene behind her and a couple of troops, looking off in different directions. I was like, how ridiculous was that photo shoot?
Yeah.
They basically went out to some place. I'm sure it was safe wherever they were at, or she wouldn't be there.
Of course.
But they brought in these soldiers to be like prop pieces
pose.
and hey, take some time off the war just so you can pose here with the first lady or whatever she's called over there. Absolutely ridiculous. Totally tone deaf, but he's a showman, right? Zelensky, which is kind of funny now because the mainstream media is starting to criticize him a little bit.
Yeah,
which I find
think
interesting.
I've seen a couple things. I haven't really looked deeply into it because I've kind of been, about it for the past few months, but I have kind of noticed that some mainstream outlets have criticized him a little.
Well, now it's back in style that you can acknowledge the fact that Ukraine's an incredibly corrupt country.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, which is weird, because we've given Ukraine a blank check. Like,
right.
How many times do you hear Biden okays another $500 million? Like, what?
I think just yesterday.
Just yesterday.
I saw tens of millions of dollars. And I've heard from Ukrainians, actually, that the money is just being laundered. I think it was Ron Paul. I'm going to butcher the quote, but he said foreign aid is money sent from poor people in rich countries to rich people in poor countries. And that seems to be what's happening here, as it happens in most cases when we send tens of millions of dollars to these poor, war-torn countries in the name of compassion. Every
time you hear about another several million or $1 billion going to Ukraine right now, everyone should Google $1.8 billion goes missing or whatever in Ukraine. $1.8 billion of aid. And this was after 2014. After that, their little revolution, we gave them $1.8 billion. It went missing out of their state bank, Privat Bank. And then they think that it got laundered through Cyprus and other shell companies. But we continue to give them money. But I think it's funny now, though. But now they're bringing that up. They stopped talking about that, Allie, when the president's son, then vice president's son, started dipping his toes into some of that corruption through Burisma and all that.
Yeah.
Then they didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to talk about it. And then as Biden was running for president, they definitely didn't want to talk about it. They were shutting down articles. The New York Post laptop article, they were shutting down some of these articles, going to expose some of that involvement. But now, as we kind of see people are turning against Biden, now they're turning on the lights again. Now they're like, oh, maybe we can talk about this stuff again. Maybe we can bring that up. But the situation in Ukraine is interesting because Russia economically, they're not in a great spot. To be a great power. Russia.
Okay.
To be a great power, you need to have a strong economy, have a strong military. They don't have a strong economy, but they were banking on that they had this strong military and the world perceived them as being strong militarily. And that is completely thrown out the window in Ukraine. They did not look like a professional military force at all. They had basic problems. They did not, for the military people listening to this right now, combined arms and their ability to execute combined arms. That's, troops on the ground, artillery, planes, all that stuff, make it work cohesive. They did not do that at all, as if they'd never even looked at it or even heard about it.
Wow.
They had, conscripts out on the front lines, just kind of walking around aimlessly. They got their butts kicked in the beginning of this war. They really did. It was they wanted to do a shock and awe, thing, and they got their butts kicked, and they got driven all the way back to the areas where they kind of pretty much already controlled in eastern Ukraine.
So what's happening right now, and how is it going to resolve? Is it going to be resolved?
Yeah, Russia, if they wanted to, could really make their country suffer and just put overwhelming, numbers at this and possibly come out more on top than they are right now. I don't know. That's a big if because they're already running out of munitions, like smart munitions, things like that. And then people are just kind of getting pissed off and just annoyed with it, I think. But the West of the United States has provided a lot of weapons, a lot of good weapons, smart weapons, effective weapons that they're at least showing that, hey, if you want to stick around for this for a while, we're going to make this as painful as possible for you. I still think that this ends in some kind of treaty that helps Putin save face, but is going to give Ukraine some relief, but they're not going to be completely happy with it. So it's going to be something where, they agree to cede eastern Ukraine or formally say, okay, fine, you have Crimea or something like that, where Putin can say, see, our special military operation worked. We got what we wanted. I gave you what we delivered. But that is not at all what he wanted. He wanted Ukraine. He wanted to topple the government. He's not going to get that. So in my opinion, eventually, and I hate making predictions, but I think the most plausible outcome would be that they maintain control of that little sliver in eastern Ukraine, and they formally get, ceded Crimea.
All right, lots of sponsors today. That's a good thing. That's what allows you to watch and listen to the show for free. And our next sponsor you are very familiar with, that is Good Ranchers. All right, Good Ranchers, it's American meat delivered right to your front door. They've got chicken, they've got beef, all different kinds of cuts of steak. They've got seafood delivered on dry ice to your front porch. You put it in the freezer, then it's good to go. But it's not just good meat. They're also giving back. This August, they are on a mission to donate 1,000 high-quality meals to young children who often go unfed or end up malnourished from poor access to nutritious food. You can join this campaign by ordering a box of their 100% American meat. Every order contributes meals to this cause. It makes a huge difference in the lives of these kids. Good Ranchers is an award-winning food delivery service that will bring that amazing, ethically raised, sustainably sourced meat right to your front door. When you go to goodranchers.com/Allie, you get $30 off your order plus free shipping. Giving back never felt or tasted so good. Go to goodranchers.com/Allie or use my code Allie at checkout for $30 off. That's goodranchers.com/Allie, goodranchers.com/Allie. Well, to bring our focus back home, just really quickly, just because I wanted to cover this today and I want to get your reaction to it. You mentioned earlier that we've got a lot of problems to be fixing and addressing here. One of those problems is, of course, George Soros and his attempt to, quote unquote, reform prosecutors. I don't know if you saw that he wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, and he said people have had enough of the demagoguery and divisive partisan attacks that dominate the debate and obscure the issues. Gosh, it just makes me roll my eyes. The system is rife with injustices that make us all less safe. The idea that we need to choose between justice and safety is false. So basically, what he's talking about here, he's addressing the criticism that, of course, he and his foundations have gotten for funding these progressive DAs in these blue cities that are not prosecuting crimes, that are allowing people back into the streets pretty much based on their skin color. They're meeting these arbitrary quotas and saying, okay, we've arrested too many black people this year. We're not going to arrest. We're not going to prosecute. We're not going to keep them in jail, basically catch and released. And the recidivism rate, of course, is very high. People are being murdered. I see stories every day. People are being murdered by someone who should have been in jail if our justice system worked. And a lot of this is due to the funding of George Soros, of these progressive DAs. And so basically he's saying, look, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop doing this, even though in the cities with the top 10 cities with the most murders per capita, if you look at the politics of the district attorneys, they are all Democrat. The mayor is Democrat, even if the states are Republican. St. Louis, Baltimore, Birmingham, Detroit, Dayton, Ohio, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Kansas City, Memphis, Cleveland, all run by Democrats, many of them funded by George Soros. He's not going to stop. I mean, if anyone cared about this country who is in charge, what he's doing would be barred, prohibited, illegal, but it's not. What's your take on all of this?
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. Think about any other country. How would they react if a foreign billionaire goes around basically inciting chaos on your largest cities?
Right.
How would they react? We can barely even discuss this. Like this conversation right now. Remember Fox News and Newt Gingrich brought this up and they cut him off?
Yes.
They cut it. Fox News.
Fox News said, oh, no, that's a conspiracy theory. I've been told, of course, before, but by left-leaning people, that's an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory.
Insane.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane. He paid, I think it was $29 or $30 million what Soros has spent on some of these district attorneys. It's absolutely ridiculous. In his little op-ed, I mean, it was ripe with just inconsistencies and hypocrisy.
Orwellian doublespeak. I mean,
he was talking about, so he acknowledges mental health, right? So he's like, yeah, mental health issues, and so that's why some of the, there's chaos, not because of my district attorney is not prosecuting. So mental health is one of the reasons. So the cure for that in his district attorneys is less laws and less action on the streets. But he also mentions gun crime. He mentions, an overwhelming amount of guns. So more laws for that. He won't acknowledge mental health on some of the gun crimes and some of the mass shootings. Where's the consistency there?
Right.
It's obviously this is completely partisan. You're trying to, so my completely tinfoil hat thing is that he...
is anything even really tinfoil hat anymore?
Not anymore.
I mean, conspiracies just keep on coming true.
They all come true.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's nuts. But everything that we've already talked about or just hypothesized, because some of this stuff doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, why would they do this? But this does not make sense unless you want the judicial system to completely come crashing down.
Of course.
Completely.
You want chaos. You want anarchy. Because why would he be funding that here? He's not an American. of course, I think that he has an interest in the collapse of America and Western civilization and has for a very long time. He's not funding these progressive DAs. I mean, maybe he is in some other countries, but I don't think that he is funding the same kind of lawlessness in China. So I think someone should ask themselves why here.
Yeah, well, the Chinese system is exactly what they want. It's the same people, the guys over in Davos, World Economic Forum, they're all billionaires themselves. Yeah. They're all the elite of the elite. They've already made their money. They've made their power. Now they want a system like China where you have to have a government official in every single company. You have to have a government, and you want to bring everybody down to parity while you stay at the very, very top. It's the socialist, communist system in a nutshell. But it's different. It's more like 21st century fascism. It's
cause chaos so people can say, "Someone save us." Government step in and do something, and then they take their power, and that's it.
And give these private companies the illusion that they really own their property and their business when we tell them everything what to do.
And equity and social justice is the Trojan horse by which they're accomplishing all of that.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we do have a lot to focus on here in the U.S., but thank you for giving us an analysis of everything that is going on around the globe.
Nerdy.
No, it was great. I really do appreciate it. Thanks, Jason, so much for coming on. I encourage people to follow you. You're on Twitter and all that good stuff, and people can catch you there.
Thank you.
All right, last sponsor, then we'll have a little outro, then we'll be out of here until tomorrow, telling you again about Blaze socks. So if you're into socks or someone in your life is into cool socks that have a message, maybe conversation starting socks, patriotic socks, then Blaze TV has got you. They've got a World Economic Forum socks. You're kind of, making fun of Klaus Schwab there, which of course we love to do. It says you will eat the bugs. My husband and I both have those socks. And then you've got your Ron DeSantis riding an alligator socks. It says own the libs. Duh. Love it. We also have Trump in a little MAGA crown. And so all different kinds of socks with these fun designs. They're all 100%, including the packaging, made in the U.S. That was really important to Blaze TV to ensure that. And so 100% American socks that are also awesome and patriotic. If you are a Blaze TV subscriber, you can use promo code BLAZESUB for 20% off your purchase. If you're not a subscriber, you can subscribe to Blaze TV now and use promo code Allie Socks to save both on your Blaze TV subscription and get 20% off these limited edition socks. Time to go shopping. Go to blazesocks.com to scope out the socks, get a pair for a deserving dad, a grad, or that person who just needs a new pair of socks and a laugh. Maybe that person is you. That is Blaze TV or blazesocks.com, blazesocks.com. All right, guys, hope that you enjoyed that explanation from Jason. I told you he breaks it down really well. If you want him to come back on for a part 2 to kind of get into more detail of anything that we talked about, we had a limited amount of time. There are a million questions I could have asked him. So we'll bring him back if that's something that you want us to do. I know you guys love him as a guest. Tomorrow, we are going to be talking about all of these stories that you are hearing, that these women are unable to get miscarriage care. They're unable to get ectopic pregnancy care. I'm going to talk to a journalist who just wrote an almost 5,000 word piece for National Review looking at each and every abortion law and figuring out whether that law is actually causing this prevention of care or inhibition of care for these women that are suffering from miscarriages or ectopics. And if it's not the law's fault, then what is really going on here? What's going on here with the lawyers, with the doctors, with the hospitals, with the insurance companies? We're going to analyze all of that tomorrow and get a lot of insight and clarity from Alexandra DeSanctis. If you haven't checked out our merch, make sure you do that. We've got lots of fun stuff. We'll include the link in the description today so you can check that out. And we will see you guys back here tomorrow.